Hello again, fellow audiophiles. I am Wave Theory, and this is episode 6 of my ongoing series that I am calling non-grammatically correctly, What Gear is My Gear? And today's episode is going to feature the Focal Radiance, a $1,290 US full-sized dynamic driver closed back headphone, okay, from French hi-fi company Focal. This set is mine. I have owned this pair here for 2 years now, I think, right about 2 years. And it has worked its way into both my personal listening enjoyment rotation, and then also I use it as a reference piece for review work. So in this series, that's what I talk about. Pieces of gear that I use for my own personal enjoyment or for reviewing work. And honestly, those two categories very often overlap, okay? So, yeah, I did a review of this, a written review, back almost 2 years ago now after I had listened to this for a few weeks. I have owned it since then. And so today I'm going to re-review it and explain why I use it for both personal enjoyment and as a reviewing reference. So let's do shameless self-promotion, and then we will re-review the Focal Radiance. Hey, thanks for watching this video. Please remember to hit that like button, and if you haven't, please subscribe. Also, I have a Patreon set up so that you can help support me on a monthly basis, and I've set up a PayPal donation so that you can help me out in that way too if a monthly subscription does not make sense for you. Links for all of that, including the benefits, in the description below. Please check those out. All right, on with the show. When the Radiance was originally released back sometime, maybe it was 2020, I don't remember exactly, but somewhere around in there, it was a limited edition release. And that is because it is a collaboration between Focal and Bentley the car company. And that it is a Focal designed and made headphone, but it uses some stylings from Bentley. And like we have the Bentley logo here on the headband, for example, on either side. And then it is also tuned to sound like an audio product from Naim. Okay, an English company there, and I forget what model that is, but I can write that down in the description of the video. And so that information is there too, all of that. And so again, it was a limited release, and so when I had it, there were when I did my initial review of it nearly 2 years ago, it was in limited supply. You could still get, there were a few of them around, and then they kind of sold out. Not necessarily because of my review, but because it's just a really good headphone that deserves it. Okay. In the meantime, between then and now, Focal has gotten around to running another batch of these. So there are new ones out there available for sale, and I will link to headphones.com where you can buy those. I have no affiliation with headphones.com. I will not get any kickbacks, and I am linking you there for your convenience only, just because I know that is a place where you can buy this wonderful headphone currently. So it's a good time to come back to this one and talk about it too. All right, so let's dig into that, and I will just kind of treat this as a fresh review almost, as if we don't really know much about it, because some out there may be hearing about this product for mostly the first time. So again, just shy of $1,300 US. It is a closed back headphone. There is a 40 millimeter aluminum magnesium dynamic driver in each cup here that Focal calls their M-shaped dome in terms of its geometry, right? The rated impedance is 35 ohms and the rated sensitivity is 101 decibels per milliwatt. It is pretty easy to drive. And that is one reason that I have kept it around as a reference piece for review work, because it's low impedance and ease of driving makes it a good piece to use with DAPs, digital audio players, mobile amplifiers, like those kind of things, portable devices, just to see if they can handle a full-size headphone that is fairly easy to drive and fairly high in efficiency. So that's one reason that I keep it around there. Then also, just as I have been doing this review work, I have heard a lot of different headphone amplifiers change their behavior based on whether they are powering a low Z, a low impedance dynamic, or a high impedance dynamic, or a planar magnetic headphone of different impedances and all of that. So this one sticks around and is like one of the pieces that I use as like a low impedance dynamic headphone, just to see how a new headphone amp that I have under evaluation will respond to that kind of load. Okay. So let's just look at the build real quick. This one, again, it's it's 2 years old, and then I also bought it used, and I got a good deal on it because it's got a couple of little small blemishes on it, all that, but it's still in good enough shape that you can tell that it is just, I think it's a really beautiful headphone with the black, okay, and then the bronze colored accents on there, and then this pattern here on the back of the cup. Okay, all that close back, and then like there is venting going on inside here. I don't know if this will show up well on the camera or not, but there is a little bit of a gap, okay, right in between these pieces here, and there's like, it's not a port, but it's a little bit of a venting here. Just because like when you build a closed back headphone, like Focal describes it accurately as like you're building what is essentially a very large speaker in a very small room. So you need to let that acoustic energy out. And so there's a vent here on either side behind the Focal logo where they allow that to happen. Okay. But the build of this thing is really quite fantastic. Just enough swivel this way to fit most heads. Okay, this motion here is well resisted and like spring loaded and all of that feels great. This mechanism, like it slides well, but it also stays in place really well too. Okay, the comfort is really good. I have found all of that. It's got the right amount of clamp where it stays on the head well as you move around, so that's really good for like OTG use kind of things. All right, and all that. And then these pads, these leather pads here feel wonderful. They are soft, they feel great against the side of the head, and they also just help with an overall like sense of isolation here, because as a closed back, this headphone does among the better jobs of closed back headphones that I have heard of holding ambient sounds out and music sounds in, okay, and just being generally a pretty well isolating headphone in that way. So that's good too. Now, I am going to start conditioning these, get some stuff to do some leather conditioning, because again, they are 2 years old, and I don't think that Focal really offers replacement pads for the Radiance. So I want to keep them in their nice condition, so I'm going to be starting to do that here very soon. Okay, but otherwise, it's a well-built headphone. It's very comfortable. The only comfort issue that I have really ever had with this is that sometimes my ears can get a little hot. Like they isolate well in there, and like so on a hot day, hot humid day, all that, using outside can get some sweaty ears going on with this particular set. But that's about it, okay, as far as that goes, and that's not a severe issue. For me, it's not as bad as it has been on some other closed backs, but it does happen. All right, so with that, let's like turn to the sound. So it really sounds wonderful. Again, it's tuned to the name. It's like the Mu-so or something like that. Again, I will put the name of it down in the description there. And what does that mean? So it is a warm headphone, like a little bit warm. Maybe some would call it dark because there is a bass shelf in here. But it does a very good job of not bleeding that extra bass energy into the lower mid-range. So there's not the characteristic bloom or bloat that often comes with an elevated bass shelf here. But from that shelf where it comes in, and then the like after that, it to my ear sounds fairly neutral across the frequency spectrum. Okay, from there on out, like to me, the mid-range sounds well tonally balanced, so does the treble, sounds pretty natural and all of that. And then the timing aspects, the attacks and the decays are also there to give this thing a really natural and organic timbre most of the time, okay, to my ears anyway. And I am some combination of overly sensitive / underly patient with mid-forwardness, particularly in the upper mids where I can get like perceive shoutiness and honkiness with a lot of headphones. This one typically does not do that to me. Okay, and many focals have, right? But I would argue that this is in focal's line. The Radiance here has the second best overall tonality, right behind the Utopia. Okay, either the original Utopia or the 2022 models. I've reviewed both. I can link to those videos down in the description below as well. You put the Utopia on the right signal chain for it, or at least a good signal chain for it, and its tuning and tonality can also be very even and very natural. But this is right there behind it, and I prefer the tuning on this one to the Stelia, to both of the Clears, to the Elegia, okay, all of that, and even the Elex. Like, I just prefer the tuning here. It sounds the most natural and organic to me in focal's line, save the Utopia on a good signal chain. Okay. The focal physicality is also here. Okay, focals are known for hard-hitting dynamics, and that is here too, although it is not quite to the extreme that you might get from, say, like the Clear MG in particular. It is not going to be quite as much of a head slammer as that one is. It's probably not as aggressive in the dynamics as the Utopia is, but it is no slouch. Okay, it's probably slightly below average in its dynamic impact for focal's line of headphones, but to say that still means that it's well above average in the world of headphones in terms of its overall dynamics and impact. Okay, I happen to like that, particularly in the low end. The Radiance here is also very surprisingly resolving. It has a very relaxed detail presentation, but all of the details, I shouldn't say all, but a good amount of the details that are in the signal end up coming through this headphone. Like, it is more resolving than you would expect it to be, and after you listen to it for a while, you hear all those subtle details start to come out a little bit more and a little bit more clearly. They're not forward, they're not pushed forward, they're all there, they're just a bit relaxed, and so it has much more resolution than I think it is often given credit for. The soundstage is not small, it is not big, it does not really stand out to me as having neither a big nor small soundstage. It does have some of that focal, like head in a bubble, kind of staging and spatial presentation, and I've described this before, whereas like a big hi-fi man or speakers or like a Sennheiser HD 800 series headphone, all of that will present the music to you. It's like sitting in the audience of a concert hall, going to a symphony and all that, and you hear all of the music coming from behind you. And then yes, there are some room reverbs and all that you can kind of place behind you on from very good recordings. Okay, but focals are like standing on the maestro's stand, right? Just the music is kind of, you're in it rather than it being presented to you. It's not necessarily in the head, it's just a little bit different presentation there. So that's here too. The imaging and the separation, again, are also quite good. You're going to get better for $1,300, of course, but you're going to have an open back to do it, because for a closed back, the spatial presentation here is quite remarkably good. Okay, so why do I use it for personal listening enjoyment? Because I just really like the way it sounds. It sounds really good. Okay, why do I use it for review work? Because I'm familiar with its sound. I trust it to tell me what's going on with the piece of gear that I have to a certain degree. More on that point in just a moment. And then it also is just an excellent piece for testing low Z amplifier performance and also on-the-go amplifier kind of performance. Okay, and honestly, this is currently, and I filmed this in early June of 2023, this is honestly my favorite closed back headphone to date, and I have heard a bunch. I'll just name a few of them quickly. Like Focal's own Stelia was more resolving than this and had a more accurate and holographic spatial presentation and might be just a hair more dynamic, but I didn't like its tuning, particularly in the mid-range. I prefer the tuning here of this one, and I'm not an EQer. I don't like to EQ, so I like that this one is tuned better to my liking, and this one also just has more bass presence than the Stelia, which I personally appreciate. Okay, so like it better than the Stelia. I would still take this over the ZMF Verite Closed. I've heard two flavors of that one, both a stabilized and epoxy stabilized, and then an African Blackwood in the Verite Closed. Again, an odd mid-range tuning to my ear with the Verite Closed. And this one is just right there with the Verite Closed in terms of its resolution. And I think you can overwhelm the drivers of the Verite Closed series in a way that this one does not. When music gets really busy, this one holds its cool better and presents things more coherently than like the Verite Closed does. And then I could put the Icon in the same category there. I've heard the Icon too, okay, on that. So same kind of deal there. Okay, although the Icon I think had a better tuning than the Verite Closed to my ear. I should say that there as well. Definitely take this over Meze Lyric. I was not a fan of the Meze Lyric at all. I have heard recently the Hi-Fi Men Audavina. That one is a mess. And I will say more about that one in the future, I hope. I'll come back to that one, but still definitely take that over this. The Dan Clark Audio Stealth probably has a better tonality than this one and is more resolving and has a more accurate spatial presentation to it as well. But it is very difficult to drive. It is not mobile OTG friendly at all, okay? And it has very poor dynamics, and I like the dynamics that this one brings, okay? And then let's see, what other closed backs do I need to mention? The only closed back that I have heard to date that I think can sound better than this one, all things considered, when you take into account the tuning, the dynamics, the spatial presentation, the resolution, the whole package. The only one that I think I liked better sonically was the LCD-X Closed 2021 from Audeze, but with a heavy amount of EQ going on. That's the only situation. The stock tuning of the LCD-X 2021 is not great, in my opinion, and puts that noticeably behind the performance of this. But if you EQ that the LCD-X 2021, well, the closed edition, it can sound better than this, but then you're tethered to that system where you're using EQ. And the LCD-X is also bigger and heavier and much more uncomfortable, and like because of its physical size, it's not a great OTG use headphone, okay? So some comparisons over there and why I have stuck with Radiance. Now, if you're interested in buying the Radiance and you're shopping around and you're looking for it, okay, you might hear that it is a little bit too forward in the upper mids, that it has some shoutiness in it, and that it's got some harsh treble to it. I've seen that in multiple places, in multiple forums around the web, where that is a complaint about the Radiance. I don't hear it most of the time, but sometimes I do. And let me explain what is going on with that. First of all, I forgot, we get this nice carrying case that comes with it. Okay, open it up. Looks like this on the inside. Here is the stock cable, and this takes me back to the point that I just made. This stock cable here, you can see how much memory it has. It's kind of stiff and springy and bouncy right here. Okay. Dual 3.5 millimeter here on the headphone end. Okay, 3.5 millimeter TRS. There's a screw-on adapter, quarter-inch adapter that comes with it. Okay, there. Focal shot themselves. They shot their own product in the foot with this cable, right when it comes down to it, because not only is it just ergonomically a little bit of a headache, although it has a good length for OTG use. It hurts the sound of this. And I know that that's really going to bother a lot of people to hear me say that, because there is definitely the attitude out there that cables don't matter, even though they are physical conductors that have to conduct physical things through them. And so, yeah, they of course are going to do physical things to the signal. It's science, right? Okay? It's actual science, not the stuff that often passes for science as discussed in our hobby, like actual real science, okay? What happens with this cable is what I just described there. For whatever reason, the treble through this cable is really hot, really sharp across a wide range of source gear. Okay, I didn't realize that so much at first back 2 years ago when I reviewed this, because I bought this unit used, and it came with a very nice Plus Sound X8 cable, which sounds amazingly wonderful on this and gives it a lot of the really good qualities that I just described. Okay, but when I came back and was like trying to investigate why would people be saying that these things are shouty, honky, and that they have harsh treble, I don't hear that at all. When I finally tried the stock cable, that's when I heard it. Okay, and it happened on multiple source pieces, as I mentioned, like the Hugo 2, my Cord Hugo 2, my KN-N6 Mark II with the EO2 module, just to name a couple of things. Okay, so I think you're going to want to use something other than the stock cable, both for ergonomic reasons and also sonic in this case. But be careful, like a Hart cable, very reasonably priced, and I like Hart cables on the budget end because their modular system is really good, and they make pretty nice stuff for like the budget and budget enthusiast tier kind of headphones. But this one did not respond to Hart cables very well. That shoutiness and that sharpness of the treble very much comes through on a Hart cable. However, there is like the brand is Neo Musica, and I will put a link to the Amazon link down below for that one. Like you can get a $20 cable from like off-brand name Neo Musica from Amazon that sounds better than the stock cable with this headphone. So again, I will put that link down there. So it's not always about price. There still is a little bit of shout and a little bit of sharpness in the treble with that $20 cable, but it's better than what the stock cable is doing. But you don't necessarily have to spend a ton of money either, and it's not a guarantee that an expensive cable is going to match with this either, because I tried a double helix cable Molecule Elite on this. A friend loaned it to me a while ago, and same kind of deal there. Very hot, very sharp treble. Don't remember it being as shouty in the mids, but that treble was just ear daggers. Okay, and that's a $300-some cable right there. Okay, love my Plus Sound X8 with this. A Corpse Cable Gravedigger sounds really good on this. Okay, what else did I like on there? Actually, Hi-Fi-Man's stock cables, those weird things that I call the catheter cables because they have that rubber tubing over them. The one that came with my HE6S EV2 anyway, sounds pretty good on this one too. So there are some cables that work at a range of prices, and then there are some that don't on a range of prices. So if you buy this one and it sounds really sharp to you in the treble and it's got a really honky mid-range to it, check the cable, okay? Trust me on this, check the cable. Because another thing, and I've heard this now on just a wide range of amplifiers, it is more sensitive to cable swapping than it is for going from amplifier to amplifier. Because, like Hugo 2, KN-N6 Mark II with EO2 module. I just reviewed the entry-level, like Hibee R2 Mark II DAP. I've put this on the Hibee RS6 DAP, FIO M11 Plus DAP. It has gotten time on my shit Asgard 3 amp. The Garage 1217 Project Ember amp. Let's see, what else? I have played this on the Hi-Fi-Man EF400 DAC amp. It's been plugged into my Vioelectric HPA V281 amplifier. Lake People G111s, Mark 1 and 2. Okay, I'm naming a bunch of different things here, on and on and on. And this thing will show me sonic differences on all of those things, but it doesn't get shouty and honky or sharp in the treble on them. Okay, it's the cable. It is the cable here. Okay, so I just need to get that out there and make sure that you, the viewers, are aware of that if you hear that those undesirable traits come through for the Radiance. So that's probably enough for now. Let me wrap this up and just come back and highlight again, why do I keep this thing around for both personal listening enjoyment and professional review work? Hopefully professional. Okay, it sounds great. Bit of an elevated bass shelf, so lots of bass presence with some good physicality and all of that, but then very natural tuning to my ear with really nice organic timbre throughout the rest of the frequency range there. And I haven't mentioned it yet, but it plays nicely with a wide variety of genres of music. Can't think of a genre of music I've heard on here that I didn't enjoy, okay, for example. Beyond that, it is low impedance. It is very easy to drive. So it is a great test of on-the-go amplifiers. Okay, can they drive a full-size headphone? This is a good place to start to check that. Okay, it also isolates very well, which makes it OTG friendly, which is another reason to check that aspect of mobile devices here, mobile amplifiers. Okay, as they come in. But then also for even desktop headphone amps, it's a good test for those because a lot of desktop amps will change their behavior based on whether they're powering a low Z load like this one or a high Z or a planar or something like that. So that is a good reference point there. But then also, again, it's well isolating, it's comfortable, it's easy to use on the go, and it just sounds really good overall. Okay, so those are the reasons I highly recommend this headphone. It is currently, again, my favorite closeback. I've not heard everyone on the market, but I have heard a lot of them. Okay, it's currently my favorite closeback, even over many more expensive options. Right, and I'm glad Focal made another run of them so that more people can enjoy this one. So I will leave it there. I am Wave Theory. This has been my re-review of the Focal Radiance and a list of reasons why I use it for both personal listening enjoyment and review work. Please like this video if you have not. Leave a comment down below. Check out my PayPal and my Patreon. Subscribe to the channel. Do all of those things you do to support YouTube channels. And as always, enjoy the music.